Boy, the Wandering Dog, by Marshall Saunders. Chapter 16. Mistress laid down her work. She was always making things for the baby now, and gave a little shriek. "Rudolph, look here, what is this?" "A dog on its last legs, apparently," he said, then gave me a shrewd look. "Something Boy has brought in." "There's blood on it, and mud," cried poor mistress, shrinking away. "Take it, Rudolph. Ring for Annie. Why, it's been abused." Why, mistress was progressing. She actually could make out something from a dog's appearance. However, it was one thing for her to tell her husband to take it, and another thing for Amarilla to allow him to take it. She yelled with fright whenever he came near her, and clung to Mrs. Granton. "Some man has whipped that dog," he said angrily. "The brute! Poor doggie, I would not hurt you for a kingdom." Protestations didn't count with Amarilla. She didn't like men, and Mrs. Granton, half flattered, half annoyed, at last retired with her to the kitchen. When she came back, a half hour later, Amarilla had been washed and brushed, and was wrapped snugly in one of Master's baby's white blankets. Annie put her in a chair near Mrs. Granton, who sat ruefully surveying her. "Rudolph," she said, "what do you think this means?" "From my knowledge of Boy," he said, "I should judge that this is either a lost dog, or some poor creature he has coaxed from some kind of slavery." "Do you think he is as intelligent as that?" she asked, surveying me kindly. "As that, and much more so," said my master. "I think there is a whole world of dog psychology open to those who will run and read." "I used to think dogs were stupid," she said. "In that you are not different from many persons," said my master. "Cultivate an animal, and you find out how clever he is." "And human beings," she said softly. "If you cultivate them, you find out that they are not as stupid as they appear." Master winced a little. He knew that in times past he had allowed her to think that she was not clever enough to be cultivated. "Claudia," he said, "you are a very clever woman." Then he burst out laughing, and she laughed with him. "Poor little frightened thing," she said at last, stroking Amarilla as she lay beside her. "She was so hungry and thirsty, Rudolph, and her poor bones are almost sticking through her skin." My blood boiled in my veins when I thought of dainty Amarilla's previous life, and the cosseting she had had from the old lady in Boston, but I must listen to what mistress was saying about Beanie. "Rudolph," she said hesitatingly, "I was thinking of asking you if I could get Beanie back. I don't think I treated him just right." Master stopped to think a minute, then he said, "Claudia, if I had given your dog to Mrs. van der Spyten, would you have asked for him back?" "Oh, no, no," she said, quite shocked at the idea. "Then why take him from a charwoman?" "I suppose it would be mean," said mistress slowly. "And here you have a beautiful and valuable dog right at hand," said my master, pointing to Amarilla. "As beautiful as Beanie?" inquired mistress. "Twice as valuable. Her points look to me about perfect." "But she may belong to some one." "I'll find that out," said master, and he did, for he put a dog detective on Amarilla's track. The man found out all about her. She had been stolen by a tramp, who sold her to the dog show man. Master visited the show, and was struck with horror at the appearance of the animals. Sitting near the stage, he saw that they were all terrified of their master. He threatened the man with prosecution, took all his dogs from him, allowing him a good sum, and best of all, finding out that he hated the show business and wanted to be a chauffeur, but couldn't afford the training, he put him in a garage and paid his way handsomely. That was master all over, to make a good thing out of an apparently bad one. He and Mr. Bonstone were always doing it. Mr. Bonstone had more practical knowledge of the ways of evildoers than master had. Master belonged to a fine old New York family, and had never lived with all sorts and conditions of men, as Mr. Bonstone had. Mr. Bonstone was as ardent a dog lover as master was, and he bundled the whole dog show out to his farm, where they were months in recuperating. They had been starved, beaten, not exercised, and 2 of them had been mercifully put out of the way. There were left 2 white poodles. They called the Frenchman a mongrel, Yeggie by name, a miniature bulldog named Weary Winnie, Czarina a Russian wolfhound, a dandy Dinmont terrier called Canny, and a bloodhound, King Harry, and after a while we all got acquainted with them. That was after the great change came in our lives, the moving from the city to the country. I must not forget to say that Amarilla proved a great success as a pet dog for Mistress. She did not care very much for exercise. She followed Mistress from one room to another of the apartment. In fact, she was like a little shadow, and oh, how she loved the baby! She would sit by his perambulator for hours, and if any stranger came near, she barked in her little shrill voice. Now I get very fond of certain human beings, and no dog could love a master better than I love Mr. Granton, but I could never keep at his heels all the time. However, Mrs. Granton didn't seem to mind being shadowed, and Amarilla adored it, so there was no reason why they should not both be satisfied. Every man and every dog to his liking. And that reminds me how, oh, how am I going to like the country? The time is drawing near for our removal. Mr. Bonstone has found a very beautiful estate for master. The change in my life is going to be positive. I don't want to run away again. I want to stay with this nice man. But can I if he leaves my beloved New York? End of chapter 16.
Book 2. My Life in the Country. Chapter 17. The Arrival of the Twins. 2 years have passed away since I wrote the first part of the story of my life. 2 whole years, but they seem like 10, for so much has happened in them, and so many changes have taken place in me, that I feel like a different dog. I have changed, human beings have changed, the whole world has changed, for that terrible blasting war in Europe is over. I thought when it was done that master would stop looking grave when he read the papers, and mistress would stop crying over the woes of the suffering babies and children. But they look and act worse than ever. It's the readjustment, master often says, the horrible setting in order of countries disordered by crimes of the worst species. Sometimes he takes his little boy in his arms and says, "George Washington, I had rather have you die now than see you live to grow up and shed the blood of a fellow man." I don't think there is any danger of George Washington ever killing anyone. He is the fattest, sweetest, dearest specimen of a boy baby I ever saw. He has no temper, as cute little Syria has. He jabbers baby talk and plays with us dogs, and never hurts one of us. I heard master say the other day that he had no liking for a man who never changes his opinion, and I believe that saying is true with regard to dogs as well as men. I never used to like babies. Why? I never cultivated them. I love them now, because I study them, and it is one of the pleasures of my life to note the astonishing developments and differences between the rapidly growing and changing Syria and little George. Sometimes they bother me. But who has not trouble? A dog that dreams through life, lives in a backyard away out of sight, nobody notices or cares for. You're bound to have a scrap occasionally, if you come out to the light. I never liked living in a backyard, but I used to run like a greyhound from disagreeable things, and seek pleasant ones, and it kept me always on the jump. Now I have made up my mind to stay by this family, no matter what happens to them. There is great happiness in an accepted family. I notice some human beings are always trying to get away from their home environment, and many times it is with them as it is with me, it keeps them on the trot all the time. I don't want anyone to think that I imagine I have become a perfect dog. Good gracious, no. I am just a good, plain, American, everyday sort of a dog. I have no illusions about myself or my owners. I want to do my duty in the dog walk of life to which I am called. I'll go round a block to attend to my business and avoid a fight, but if trouble meets me the other side of the block, I'll not dodge it, but I'll grip it by the throat and try to down it. If it downs me, I'll get up and shake myself, and hope for better luck next time. To keep myself humble, I often say, "Great Cerberus, what a fool I am! but still not half so much of a fool as I used to be. Another most important opinion I've changed is that the city is a better place to live in than the country. How could I ever have made such a mistake? I'm a country dog, now and forevermore, and all my dog set has gone over with me. The country to live in, the city to visit. You ought to hear old Gringo on the subject. "'Pon my word, boy," he often says, when we gossip together, "I never dreamed that an old Bowery dog would get so stuck on green grass and blue sky." The Bonstones live right under a long and beautiful eminence called Green Hill. Their big, bare house spreads out like a barn under the hill slope. They haven't one thing in that house they could do without. They have no carpets nor stuffed furniture, no draperies at windows, just plain shades, and their floors are of some smooth, shiny tiles that can be flooded with a hose, and the water runs down and waters the window boxes on the floor below. They haven't a tablecloth in the house, but they have lovely things to eat on tables of finely polished wood, and they have plenty of big soft cushions and comfortable wicker chairs, and many floor rugs that can be lifted easily and taken out of doors. It's the most sanitary house I ever saw, and Mrs. Bonstone says it reminds her of a hospital. However, she does not complain. She says that a little while after she was married, when she found her husband wanted to come to the country, she said, "It's the man's right to choose the place of domicile, and here's one woman that will let her man go further than that, for he may build the house and furnish it too." Everybody says it is an ugly house, and yet I notice everybody likes to visit it, and sit by the big jolly fires in winter, or loll on the spacious verandas in summer, and partake of the fine meals that are served in the dining–room. All the jewellery and silver were banished from the house long ago. They were sold for the benefit of the unemployed, and Mr. and Mrs. Bonstone wear a sporting sort of clothes, and a handsome couple they are. He has got quite brown, and she has a magnificent colour from being so much in the open air. She hasn't any bric–à–brac to look after, nor fol–de–rol such as most women have, and even the servants are out a great deal, for the Bonstones install in their house every labour–saving device that is put on the market. Cyria is a little beauty, and browner than ever, but not foreign–looking. Strangers always think she is the Bonstones' only child. 6 months ago every one said her nose would be put out of joint, but it wasn't. It was straighter than ever. I shall never forget that wonderful event. Good old Gringo, who has matured wonderfully since coming here, and who has also seemed to grow younger, for he has lost his rheumatism because he takes more exercise, came over to our house one drowsy summer day, just gasping and panting with excitement. He is always going about here with his double shuffle gait. He has no health commissioner, and no policeman nor muzzle to worry him. "What's up?" I asked, blinking at him sleepily. "We're ahead of you," the good old dog snorted. "You've got one baby only. We have 3." "Not triplets?" I gasped. The old dog gave me a look. "Of course not, though if it had been triplets it would have been all right. We've got twins, boy, but Cyria counts in. She's our baby too. Come on over and see them. We've all got rats in the garret over them. We're crazy, crazy, crazy. Just think, 2 babies." "Boys or girls?" "One of each, of course," he exclaimed, his square face alight with pride. "Come on, double quick." I capered back with him. It almost kills me to see him run. Bulldogs weren't built for grace. Of course I saw nothing of the babies, but we listened under the window, and occasionally heard little faint peeps, like young birds. "Look at Mister walking in the blue garden," gurgled Gringo. "Wouldn't you think he was tramping on wool?" The blue garden was full of blue flowers of different shades, and rocks and rills, and rustic seats and arbours. It was a delicious spot, and very aesthetic. Mr. Bonstone certainly didn't look blue. He was walking to and fro quite quickly, in spite of the heat, and occasionally he lifted his eyes to the sky. "Doesn't know whether he's on his head or his heels," whispered Gringo. Suddenly the man stooped down and picked a bachelor's button to put in his coat. Then, with a broad smile, he picked another and put beside it. "Remembers he's got to run double," said Gringo gleefully. "Believe me, I'm happy for mister." "What are you going to call your babies?" I inquired. "You'll never get such a good name as George Washington." "We had only one ready," said Gringo. "That was John. I guess mister will settle on Mary for the girl, if missis don't object." "Well," I said, "you're pretty close to us. John and Mary are two of the oldest and best of names. Nothing fancy about them." "Mister wants them to be good," said Gringo. "He says nothing else counts if you haven't got that rock-bottom character. My, what a training they'll have! If they don't want to serve their fellow men, they'll have a fight with the missis. She has gone batty on the subject." "I hear she even believes in women voting," I said cautiously. "She believes in letting men and women and children and animals do everything they blank please, provided they don't bang into any other men's, women's, children's or animals' rights. Liberty for her. None of your coop-me-up rules." "It's a good thing she's got out of that old society, sleep, eat and play life," I said. "A mighty good thing," observed Gringo. "She was most dotty." "Hist!" I cried. "Who's crying?" "Little Cyria," said Gringo. "She's a regular baby, temper too, but her own." Poor little brown girlie. She trotted toward the blue garden, ran up to the abstracted Mr. Bonstone and clasped both his knees. "Oh, daddy, daddy, Cyria's most dead." "What's the matter, baby?" he asked kindly, and sitting down on a rustic bench, he took the child on his lap. "Thomas' little boy's been teasing me. I wented up to the stable with nurse. The boy said, 'Feel your nose, little girl,'" and she went on to choke out her story of despair. The bad boy had said she was only adopted child, and now there were two babies who were real babies, and she would either be sent away or put in a corner. She spoke very plainly for a child of little more than 3 years, for she had been brought up with grown people. "Oh, daddy, won't you love me any more?" she cried. "Won't you let Cyria sit on your knee?" "Of course I will," he said. "Don't believe any of this nonsense." "But the bad boy said you had only 2 knees, and where would I go?" "I'll tell you what we'll do," said Mr. Bonstone gravely. "We'll strap an artificial knee on daddy for one of the babies, the boy, for example. My right knee belongs to you, my first little girl." "Daddy, what's a 'dopted baby?" she asked pitifully. "A 'dopted baby is something a little better than your own baby," said Mr. Bonstone. The child suddenly threw her arms round his neck. "Daddy, you is sweeter than the roses." Mr. Bonstone kissed her very affectionately. Then he said, "Come, see the new babies. You must choose one for your own, and I will choose one." "I want the girlie," said Cyria. "Very well, you shall have Mary." "And she must go sleepy in my beddie." "Possibly later, but not just now," said her adopted father. Then he took her away in the house. "Nice man, that," I said. "Rather," observed Gringo wisely, and with an eloquent shake of his square head. "Gringo," I said, "I hear that old Mrs. Resterton is coming out here." "She arrived today," replied Gringo. "She stood that big house in New York as long as she could. She thought she was in heaven when the boss let her run it. And she had what she's been longing for, that is, lots of dough. But she isn't as smart as little Missy, her granddaughter, and she found that though her place was just as firm in sasciety—" "Society, Gringo," I said. "You never do pronounce that right." "So—ciety, then," continued the old dog. "She was as strong in it as Grant's tomb, but the butterfly world fluttered by, when she no longer had her gamesome wasp. So she wrote mister. I thought he'd smother laughing. He took the letter out to the orchard, for the old lady didn't want missis to know. She said in it everything she didn't mean, but mister read between the lines. She missed her granddaughter Stanna, and her great-granddaughter Cyria." "I like that," I said, "when she fought so against the child's adoption." "Oh, forget that," said Gringo. "Anyway, she wanted to come live here, and he let her come, and he's going to sell the house and make a big figure on it for an apartment house site, and he's going to get a coupé for her to run about in, and have all the old ladies she wants." "She'll be agreeable, won't she?" I asked anxiously, for I hated to hear of anything clouding the Bonstones' lovely home life. "Agreeable, yes. She's a comely old dear. Everybody likes her. She minces round in her black silk, poking her aristocratic old nose into everything. But who cares? The servants favour her, and the missus pets her like a baby." "But Master Carty," I said, "I do hope he isn't coming." "He's got to," said Gringo uneasily, "as his home with his grandmother is broken up." "There's your snag," I said. Gringo looked gloomy. "You bet. The young rap tipples all the time. The women can't stop him." "Maybe country life will." "Maybe," said the good old dog, "but I've seen many lads going Carty's way. I'll tell you what mister will do. He'll give him a good fair showing, then if he doesn't make good, he'll kick him out." "But what about the women?" I said. "The women!" exclaimed Gringo with suppressed rage. "I'm tired of this drink martyrs business. The men have all the fun, the women all the pain. Every time that young rapscallion comes out here, missus sneaks up to his room to feel his coat pockets, and search his suit case, to find out if he's brought any of the powerful, and if she finds it, she cries and pours out half and puts water in, and if a caller comes, down she goes, smiling as if she hadn't a trouble in the world. I'd like to chuck all the drunkards in New York Bay with a rock on their necks." "Come, come, Gringo," I said, "that doesn't sound like you. Can't you think of a way to reform the poor wretches?" "Nothing but shut off the liquor," said Gringo. I burst out laughing. "How you have changed, old fellow. You used to be for high license, drink in moderation, self–restraint, etc." "It doesn't work with sapheads," said Gringo. "I'm for drowning now. Do you know what missus did? Had that fellow put over her head." "You mean his bedroom, when he comes to visit?" "Yes, so she could listen for his step. When it's steady she is gay. When he stumbles and pushes the furniture round, she is sad." "I shouldn't think your master would have allowed that," I said angrily. "It's a shame for Mrs. Bonstone to be so bothered." "Mister," exclaimed Gringo, "do you suppose he knows? Not a word of it. Women keep little tricks like that to themselves." "Well, I hope he won't kill her," I said. "I wish we could do something to help her." "Maybe we can," said Gringo with a knowing air. "Our owners don't know how much help they get from dogs." Old Gringo's prophecy came true, and in rather a funny way, later on. End of chapter 17.
Chapter 18. It was 6 months ago that the twins came, and now they are fine, healthy young babies, being pushed round in their perambulator all over the place by their nurse, who is so well trained and so up to date that she is overtrained, or fine, as Gringo says. Gringo and I were watching them one day a few weeks ago, as we sat side by side up in the orchard at the Bonstones. This orchard is a little one containing very old trees, and it is never ploughed. It is a lovely, shady place to rest, for the grass is kept short and is soft as a carpet. It has become quite a social meeting place for the dogs of the neighbourhood, and we often discuss things there. "Fine babies, those," I remarked. "Yes," assented Gringo. "I suppose you wouldn't find a finer pair in the whole state of New York." "Do you like them better than the little girl Cyria?" I asked. Old Gringo wrinkled his forehead. "I never think about that," he said. "They're all ours, and I guess the Mr. and Mrs. don't think of it either." "That's good," I replied. "I'd hate to see the little brown baby made uncomfortable." Gringo chuckled. "Those were great times back in New York, but I'm glad I'm in this army." "There's no doubt about it, you are firmly wedded to the country life now," I said. "Wedded? I guess so, and I often snicker to think how I'd have fought to a finish any dog in the Bowery that told me I'd get to praise the country and run down the city." "And you thought you'd get bored here," I said with a sly laugh. "Bored," and he grunted happily. "What chance have I? It's up at daylight with mister and out to the stables and barn, laying out the day's work for the men, examining the stock to see they're all first class. By the way, mister's going to make a fortune raising colts, 'cause the war cleaned out all the horses. Then in the house for breakfast. I say, boy, things do taste good out here in this clear air. Then in town in the car, out again, and pottering around after missus and little Cyria, out in the gardens and after the hens till lunchtime, then a drive in for mister and a stop in the village with him. I say, Gringo, I interrupted, I believe of all the things your master and mine have done out here, that automobile school is the best. Right you are, said the old dog. These lads that my boss picks up out of prisons and in the streets won't settle down to anything that isn't pretty lively. They'll break colts or hustle round a machine shop, but they'll not stick to indoor work. That breaking colts is new business to me, I said. How can you take a pale, weak city lad and make him successful? I thought you had to have strong men. Oh, that's the old brute way, said Gringo. You begin now when Colty is young and tender. Hitch him up with a little bit of something dangling after him. Break him in gradually to something bigger. Lots of these city yaps haven't ever had anything to like, anything decent, you know. I understand, I replied. They've had nothing to love. There's one rogue, said Gringo, who sleeps in the box stall with his pet colt, and 'pon my word I've seen him with his arm round its neck. He's a gutter snipe, and my boss will soon rout him out and make him sleep in a bed, but he ain't too hasty with these low-life chaps. What's this new talk about jitney cars? I asked. Our bosses have got a lot of second-hand cars and are doctoring them for some of our lads who can run them about New York like a taxi man does. But a jitney is a 5-cent fare thing, isn't it? Yes, but it pays. Catch my boss in anything that doesn't speak up when it's spoken to. That will be fine, I said, for then the boys will be self-supporting. I didn't finish my day, boy, said the old dog. After we tot up things down at the village, we have our supper, and don't the food taste first class. Then a short evening on the veranda, and then bed. I tell you it's a full day, as full as a Bowery day. I laughed, and he laughed too. Then I said, I'm mighty glad, old man, that the intimacy between our two families has kept up. So am I, he said. But do you know what I overheard when we first came out? Says my missy to your missy, Claudia, we are only a mile apart. If we see too much of each other, we shall fight. We most did the other day, and our husbands shouldn't be too much together. They'll fall out sure as rats. Did she say rats? I asked. Oh, that or something like it, said the old dog so impatiently that I resolved not to interrupt him again. Well, he went on, says my missy to yours, I'd hate to have a break, and your missy said so would she. Then they said they wouldn't call for a week, and next morning your missy was over to borrow a pattern for a pair of knitted reins for Georgie to play horsey, and my missy was back in the afternoon to take her some sweet pickles she'd been making. So there you are. And I must not forget to say that the two families were all over on your veranda in the evening. Good joke, I said, laughing heartily, and we dogs are just as friendly as the human beings. Thick as thieves, said Gringo, and I must say we're a pretty good gang. As Gringo was speaking, two of the dogs in the performing troupe that Amarilla belonged to came round the corner of the house. They are two beautiful snow-white French poodles, and have exquisite manners. When they first came out, they were thin and frightened. That was before we arrived. By the time we came, they were fat and prosperous and happy-looking dogs. On the stage, they had worn their hair clipped in the approved fashion for poodles, and their forelocks were tied up with ribbon. Mrs. Bonstone took the ribbons off, for she wanted them to be real dogs, she said, and they are only clipped now when warm weather comes, and then all over. It does Gringo and me all the good in the world to see the quiet delight these two handsome dogs take in their well-ordered life here. They are full of interest in American life. They were born in Paris, and at first they thought the whole world was bounded by the Seine where they used to be taken to be washed. Then they were sold to this dreadful man, Fifeson, who beat them sometimes, but not nearly as often as he beat Amarilla, for poodles are naturally splendid trick dogs and learn things easily. Gringo, I said, do you think these dogs are any different from other dogs who have never been treated cruelly? Course I do, he growled. Don't you see they ain't like you and me? Yes, I see it, I replied, but I wanted to know whether you did. Their spirit's broken, he said. The Frenchmen are happy, but there's a look in their eye, as if they wouldn't be surprised any minute if someone up and struck them. Weary Winnie doesn't show it as much as they do, I said. Gringo grinned. Weary Winnie was his pet among the showman's dogs. She was a fat, lazy young miniature bulldog with a wrinkled muzzle that looked as if she were always smelling something disagreeable, and one white tooth that stuck out beyond the others. She came of grand stock, but was rather stupid, and had played an old woman on the stage, being dressed up in a shawl and bonnet. Amarilla says her beatings were awful, for she couldn't seem to learn the simplest thing. The showman made her hold things in her mouth, and at last he had to give up the pipe, for she always let it fall out. Finally, he tied a basket to her lips, and the string hurt her. When we came out here, she was taken over to our house to be a playmate for me, but she used to run away and howl about this place till at last master asked Mr. Bonstone to keep her. When she isn't sleeping, she's paddling about after Gringo, and looking just about as graceful as he does. She sleeps in a box stall in one of the stables, with the Frenchman. Mr. Bonstone likes to have plenty of dogs about his horses, for they are such good guardians. No stranger can get near the horses when the dogs are at their post, and some of them are always in or near the stables. Gringo, of course, always sleeps in his master's dressing room. He saved Mr. Bonstone's life once, out west, when a bad man who was his enemy crawled in a window at night, and was just about to shoot at that head on the pillow so dear to Gringo. How did you stop him? I often ask Gringo, for he loves to tell the story. Just took a playful leap at his throat, the old dog always says. And what did your master do? Heard the rumpus, got up, and took the man's gun away. And what did the man do? Broke down and wanted to shake hands with the boss. And what did your master do? Shook and told him to go home and get another gun. Gringo, of course, can leap like a cat, that being one of the characteristics of a thoroughbred bulldog. He, however, can jump higher than most bulldogs, for the man from whom Mr. Bonstone bought him had given him special training. He was a famous boxer, and Gringo says he used to put on gloves and have many a go with him. Gringo would spring at the boxer's chest, he was a 6-footer, and try to bite a button from his vest. The boxer would give him good blows with his gloves and drive him away, but Gringo always came back. It was rough training, but it made the young dog hardy. Besides the Frenchman and Weary Winnie, the Bonstones have Yeggie, a mongrel, another one of the showman's lot. Oh, what an elegant-looking little fellow he is. His eyes seem to be pleading with you to make up some message that he is unable to deliver. Amarilla says he is another one that got plenty of whacks from the showman. She says that look of tears in his eyes means that he's trying to tell you of his troubles so that you will sympathize with him. All these show dogs have nightmare most horribly. That is one reason why Gringo won't allow Weary Winnie to sleep in the house with him. He had her in one night, and he said that though he was fond of the creature, he couldn't have her yelling blue murder every hour in his ear. Yeggie is young and dashing, and hasn't very good manners. He was a tramp dog when the showman got him, and sometimes he annoys me by saying that I, too, led a tramp's life. I explain to him over and over again that a wandering dog isn't necessarily a tramp dog, but he can't make the distinction. Poor fellow, he hadn't early advantages, and is rather inelegant in his ways. We older dogs are always correcting him, but he forgets easily and is still very heedless. However, he has a very happy time, and that is the main thing. He loves the men and the horses, and always sleeps on the foot of Joe's bed in his room over the larger of the 2 stables. Thomas sleeps in the other stable, and Czarina is always his companion. She is a magnificent Russian wolfhound, and is Mrs. Bonstone's special pet next to Sir Walter, who is the favourite in chief, though he is not very much with his mistress now on account of his devotion to the hens. I should have mentioned sooner this aristocratic dog. From the start, Sir Walter liked the idea of moving to the country, for it suggested his former life in Scotland. Gringo and I imagined he would be the show dog of the place, always in evidence on the avenue, in the drawing room, on the verandas, or hanging about the automobiles. To our amazement, that dog's one idea when he got to the country was to have something to boss. He would have preferred sheep, but Mr. Bonstone could not keep any, as we are too near the city. Sir Walter could do nothing with the horses, for the men were with them all the time, and told them what to do. He wants to run a show of his own, Gringo used to say, and though I like the dog, he ain't going to boss me. He couldn't boss me either, and not one of the showman's dogs minded a word he said. He did fuss round the Jersey cows a bit, but the lad that drove them to and from the pasture wouldn't have Sir Walter interfering, so he took to following Mrs. Bonstone about when she took care of her large flock of hens. They were beautiful white Wyandottes, and were kind and sensible. It is wonderful what intelligence hens have when one treats them well. Sir Walter got interested in them, found he could order them about to his heart's content, and when seeding time came, he had made himself so useful that kind-hearted Mrs. Bonstone was delighted to be able to give them their liberty under his superintendence. Those hens knew just as well as Christians that it was naughty to scratch up the seeds in the vegetable and flower gardens, but they had a pleasant little way of yielding to temptation till Sir Walter took them in hand. "Bow wow, chickies," he would say, running round and round them, and carefully steering them away from danger points to the orchard, or the meadow, or the new land that was being broken up by the plough. Those hens minded him beautifully, and he was as happy as the day was long. At first the other dogs would roar with laughter to see him rush out to the hen houses in the morning, wait for his charges to be let out, and wander about with them all day. One day he caught Yeggie making faces at him, and gave him a great walloping, and that taught all of us to be more respectful. If he liked hens, he had a right to associate with them. "A gentleman can perform any kind of menial labour without degrading himself," Sir Walter said to Yeggie, and emphasized it by a bite on the ear. As time went on, the hens became more and more of a passion with Sir Walter, and by the time the twins came he was sleeping out in a kennel by the hen houses, and had a pet white chicken roosting on his back. Its name is Betsy, and it is not to be killed, but kept for him, as he is so fond of it. Many of the Bonstones' neighbours have hens stolen, but no one now ever braves the army of dogs at Green Hill. One man tried it, a stranger who did not know about the dogs. He had tramped out from New York, and seeing a flock of Wyandottes on the farm as he passed by on the road, he decided it would be a good place to steal a few chickens. He lay hidden in some bushes till night, then he crept cautiously to the barn. Sir Walter met him, and growlingly escorted him to his kennel. The other dogs scented a stranger, and the unhappy tramp found himself confronted by Weary Winnie, Yeggie, the Frenchman, and Czarina. They did not bite him. Mr. Bonstone's dogs, and ours too, are trained never to put their teeth in a man unless he is trying to kill them or some human being. We can nose and push and knock over and grip if necessary, but not bite. The poor tramp was in a dilemma, and finally he crawled into Sir Walter's kennel and covered himself with straw. Cook was the first one up at the hen houses in the morning. She wanted fresh eggs for breakfast. Seeing Sir Walter watching the kennel door with a peculiar air, she went up and looked in, and screamed when she saw a man's head in the straw. Thomas and Joe came running from the barn, and ordered the man to come out. "Sure and I can't," he said. "Those gentlemanly dogs have peeled every stitch of clothing off me." Sir Walter says his clothes were thin and old, and they literally dropped off him when the dogs pushed him about. Thomas howled with delight, and telling the man to shake off the straw in which he was buried, sent Joe up to the house for a suit of old clothes of Mr. Bonstone's. That tramp had the greatest admiration for the dogs, and sat about the place for days smoking and staring at them. Mr. Bonstone at last ordered him to get out. He absolutely wouldn't work, and busy Mr. Bonstone was not the kind of man to have an idle person about. End of chapter 18.